January the 27th, Rivals.com, Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. Former Wolverine Jim Scarcelli joins the show like he has, 3 years. On a Monday, that happens most of the time as well. Here he is after a championship Sunday in the NFL that did not include the Lions, which had everybody's head down. Scar, how you doing?
I'm good, Danny. You know, when you watch those two games yesterday and then you watch Ohio State and Notre Dame, it's the same thing, man. The teams that win, they've got great leadership, identifying talent. They've got great coaching. They've got damn good players. They got quarterbacks. You know, you look at you look at Philly, you look at KC. Look, everybody wants to talk about the quarterback. They got defenses, man. They got big, strong, tough, athletic dudes on defense. Spagnuolo is a damn good defensive coach. Fangio over at Philly, he was with Jim when he got Stanford going there.
Yeah. He's
a damn good coach. And they got good players, man. They play defense too. And you know, you watch Ohio State, they did the best job in collecting a team. You know, they had every position. They went and got the right quarterback. They recruited the top receiver, and you know, there's so much about building your team and identifying the right players, and then coaching them up too. You got to do all that.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with all of that up to a point. You know, I don't think that KC would have won the Super Bowl last year if it wasn't for their defense. I think the defense and Spagnuolo and his game plans, they had to go on the road twice last year. They had to beat Buffalo, in Buffalo. They had to beat the Ravens in Baltimore. And the defense was awesome. And on that, the last fourth down that Buffalo had, Spagnuolo had Tony Romo in a tizzy with him bringing the corner and then putting pressure on Allen, and he just had to throw it up. And even though Kincaid could have caught that ball, I mean, that was that a lot of credit goes to the defense there. But Kansas City's not winning all these Super Bowls and being in the position that they are without Patrick Mahomes. He's the engine. He's the reason. He's on pace to be better than Tom Brady at this age. And, you know, he just did it again. And, you know, last year he was hurt. Yesterday, you don't see him really run statistically in a very good year, talking about Patrick Mahomes. But yesterday, when they needed a first down or they needed a touchdown run, he was using his wheels. And, you know, then he was, making pretty good hay with these wide receivers that he had, even though he lost, you know, his top ones and everything else. He just did it again. So all that other stuff is true, but you're going to be Patrick Mahomes. You got to have a great quarterback. You got to have all of that, but you better have a great quarterback too.
Yeah, you know, we can beat that up all day. They're complete football teams, though. Their defense was strong at the end, and they're definitely a great player.
You and I can sit around and disagree, and whatever. You have your side. I just made my side. I think people out there are like, you know what? I think they're both right, but I think Fithian overall has probably the hammer and the best point. Maybe there's people over there that are thinking like, hey,
it's like the guy. It's like the coaches in the when they're debating and discussing things. It's like, who has the chalk last? Who has the marker on the board last? That's the guy that wins.
Yeah, I don't just count all the other stuff. And you're right. You know, Philly's defense, and they have tremendous players. And if you just look at the rankings and everything, they, at one point, they've been the best defense. So they have that, and they're not just Jalen Hurts. In fact, Jalen Hurts has been injured. It's been Saquon Barkley, actually, for Philly. Philly's got a really good offensive line, and they got a really good defense, and they got a lot of star players. I mean, they could do it without A.J. Brown. They could do it without Devontae Smith. They could do it without Jalen Hurts. Just turn it around and giving it to Saquon Barkley. When you have a great offensive line, it allows you to do so many things, and you have got a really good defense, maybe the top defense. That really helps you as well. What did you think about the Commanders? If the Commanders didn't turn the ball over like they did, they would have had a shot.
Oh, yeah. They played perfect against us. They come into Detroit, and they're flawless. No turnovers, no mistakes. Quarterback was, they stripped the ball. Turnovers, man. Yeah, it would have been a different game because those were crucial turnovers, momentum, and
How about
Yeah,
just
but you got,
what do you do if you're on defense? What do the Commanders were down there jumping over the pile, false start. They're trying to do everything. You can't stop the brotherly shove.
well, people have to figure out how to do it, man. Denny, they did that. They used to call that the flying wedge. They did it 100 years ago, man. 120 years ago. Teddy Roosevelt wanted to outlaw football. It was that type of a play, and it was the same type of thing. And you just got to have a plan. And now guys are doing different things from it. Listen, straight T football is not too much different from that. And that's stuff every high school coach knows how to defend. Now guys are running. They're running jet sweep. They're running. They're putting guys in motion off of that same action. They're throwing the ball. You've seen teams throw the ball from that formation. So, yeah, it could really be expanded. But you better get your inside guys. They got to find a way to get lower than their guys. You want to talk about defending that stuff? You know who I'd go to? I'd go talk to the Army Navy guys about defending that stuff, because those guys know how to defend short yardage, because that's what they run. They're good at. Those are the best guys in the country at defending that stuff.
Yeah, who do you like in the Super Bowl?
Oh man, that's why it's like a 1-point game. Good luck figuring out that one. They're both capable. Who's going to make plays, turnover? I don't know. Denny, I have no clue. I have no clue about that game.
Well, let me help you out, Scar. What I have done the last few years is I have sat there like you, flummoxed, looking at both sides, thinking, man, I can make a case for that, make a case for that. But in the end, I have picked Kansas City because they have Patrick Mahomes, and it has worked for me. I usually don't bet recklessly, but in the Super Bowl, I do. You're going to have some money. You're going to be around friends. You do end up just, betting just to bet. And if you're going to bet just to bet, I'm going to bet on Patrick Mahomes. And I'm going to.
Yeah, it's a good theory, Danny. You can't beat it.
It's been working. The last time I didn't do that is I did that for years with Tom Brady, and it was working really well. It's just like always just bet with Brady. And that was working pretty good for me. And then, I did that against Mahomes with Brady. And even though there's especially that one championship game before he went to the Bucs and beat him, there were some big calls in that game, but the Brady ended up getting to the Super Bowl in that one. So
yeah, Mahomes is the real. One thing that bugged me though in that game yesterday. I'm watching Mahomes. He stepped up in the pocket one time. The Buffalo players didn't even want to tackle him. I don't know if you remember some of those times when he steps up. He had about a 10, 12, 15-yard run, and you can see the Buffalo players. They don't even want to come near him. Just slide when you want to slide. We'll just tap you down when you're ready to. It was kind of sad.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of sad because there's definitely the chief fatigue and everything else. People there's a lot of people that are built up hatred towards the Chiefs and Mahomes and Swift and Caitlin Clark and Kelsey, and they just and they hate the refs, and they think the refs are in the bag, for the Chiefs and everything else. They see him on every commercial. People are tired of it. So
well, I like the guy. No, Danny, I'm going to make it real simple for all our listeners and you. So this is the kind of players I like, the kind of coaches I like are the guys that make my job easy. I coached high school football for 25 years. So if you're the kind of guy that makes my job easy, I like you. Meaning you respect the game, you respect your teammates, you talk about team, you're not a me guy, you're not grabbing your cojones in the end zone, you're not doing some of that crazy stuff. You know what I mean? You know what kind of stuff I'm talking about. So if you're that kind of a player, I like you. Period. You're a team guy, you're a humble guy, you're not doing stuff to destroy your team. I like you. And Mahomes is a team guy. So I like him I'm pretty consistent on what I like in a player.
Yeah, I think he's a team guy too, and he's great. And when you're the very top, so you're going to draw a lot of people that are just not going to like you because you're the very top. It goes back all the way, whatever. If we're talking about football, whoever were the Steelers and the 49ers and the Cowboys, they all draw a lot of people that hate him. And now with the Chiefs, they do that with Mahomes. Oh, he gets every call and everything else. Well, he is going to get some calls, and there's a point to some of those calls. I'm not over here saying, oh, no, it's all right up on every call. It's, and even the 4th and 1 yesterday. But, I thought the 4th and 1 was it was. I see why there was a controversy. I had the linesman. He had the ball in the right hand, and he had his back to the guy that should have had the best view of it. But, he really didn't know. and he had called him, looked like he had was going to mark the ball for a first down. Meanwhile, the guy on the other side who had 10, 20 players in front of him, there's no way that he could have saw it. He came in and said, "No, I've got him short." I don't know who has the authority, or if you're with the closest guy, and how they talk that over. Like, look, I didn't have a view, he didn't have a view, and the guy's like, "No, let's mark him short," because if they would have marked him for a first down, then I don't think that the replay would have overturned it. And so those are tough calls. And I know a lot of people, they think it was like the plane of the goal. They're doing all these. It's not like a touchdown. Initially he had a little surge, and then they pushed him back. And so, right up to the line, you can't tell. So anybody definitively saying that was definitely a first down or it definitely wasn't, not that I don't listen to you, but I'm saying, what are you doing? You didn't see it. You don't really know. So you have to, I don't even know if they had a chip in the football and they had a chip on the yard lines, which they have that technology, and everybody's saying, myself included, that they should use that just so they can have another data point and might help them. I don't think it would help them in that. And there's going to be certain calls in football that you're just they're going to be subjective. And even though the officials don't have the look at it, and you get the sky cam, and you got a camera down the line, and you got officials right there, they're still going to be, really close to call. I thought the JT Barrett play was like that. It was so close that easily that Michigan could have got the stop there, and the Michigan could have won that game. And Ohio State fans would have been upset, and they would have had all these video, and then have had all this film. You say, look, man, that guy was so close, it could have gone either way. So, that's that play. They had some similarity in it that way.
Yeah, because they're just huge. They define a season, man. So anyway, that's that.
That's that. Okay, Scar. Well, let's let doesn't sound like you agreed there. It's pretty good. You don't agree at the end? Let's move on.
There's a lot of good stuff about Michigan that we need to get to, man.
Good point, Scar. That's the way to do it. Jim Knowles is on the move. We'll get to that. Last week's title game. We'll see. Scar was talking about that game, watching that game. We'll see what he took away from that game. But we're going to start with, it says it on the lead on this podcast, Jim Scarcelli talking about Michigan's offense in 25. And a lot of that's going to have to do with Chip Lindsey and the Chip Lindsey effect. What kind of effect do you think Michigan's new offensive coordinator is going to have on the Wolverines this year?
I think we're seeing something, I think, with recruiting. Obviously, it's just so hard to determine what a kid is thinking. How much does he want to play for that coach? How much does he want to go get that degree at that school? Or is it just about the bag? Some of this stuff I have no clue on. But I think Lindsey has a pretty good reputation of coaching some big-time quarterbacks. So I'm seeing Michigan in on some big-time kids that, you hate to say it, but he might be a little better than Campbell from recruiting certain types of players. I mean, Jim Harbaugh was a 15-year NFL quarterback. It's bottom line, it's credibility, man. You're a quarterback, and you want to play for that kind of a guy. So what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling is that Chip Lindsey may help us recruit big-time quarterback, because I'm seeing that we're in on guys. Denny, my opinion, though, I've said it. I think Sharon Moore is set in the foundation of what he believed, because he saw us win 3 championships in a row, Denny, with tight ends and a structure of what we do offensively. If we are a little more of a spread team, maybe a little more formations with 3 receivers, 1 tight end, we might see I think it might be subtle, if any, with Chip Lindsey. But we have a lot of tight ends on our roster, and I think Sharon likes the fact that we won 3 championships with a certain philosophy of football. But I think maybe, if I had to guess, there might be a few more formations with 3 receivers and 1 tight end in the game than we had last year. That's just trying to guess, anticipate some formational structural changes offensively, but we're gonna want to run the damn football and be good at it.
That all makes sense to me. If I was a quarterback in the 26 or 27 class that every team in the country wanted and Michigan called, I would not only take their call, I would immediately be considering them with everything that they have. The one part that I'll be watching really closely if I'm that 5-star quarterback is how Lindsey's offense is going to work with Bryce Underwood, who was a very highly touted quarterback. And if they see Bryce having success in this new offense and Michigan has everything else to offer, then I think that's going to be the final piece for any top-rated quarterback to say, I'm in.
Well, Danny, there's two sides to that. The two kids I saw that we had on our website, the Maize and Blue Review, was this Lyons kid. He's both from California, dual threat kid, and this Smigel kid, big tall kid, pro quarterback style. They're both from California, both 5-star kids. But the downside of having a 5-star, $10 million guy like Underwood, people aren't going to want to. If he's playing, he's going to play. You don't want to sit behind that kid because you can't get out of college for 3 years. So that's the downside of having great play. Because listen, man, I was that guy when I was getting recruited. I'm sure players look at that stuff. You want to look at who do I got to beat out to get on the field. You want to look at the roster, and get a feel for some of that stuff. So that stuff is important, Danny, when guys are getting recruited.
Yeah, overall, you're right. There's exceptions to that rule, and it seems like Georgia and Ohio State are the exception to that rule. They'll get a 5-star this year. They'll get a 5-star next year. And sometimes they get 2 5-stars in the same class. If you've been following this over the last 5 years or so, or even longer. So Ohio State can bring them in left and right. But you're right. I think overall, that's a good point. The kid that you mentioned first,
Lyons.
Yeah, he is going to take because of his religion, he'll be taking a trip, and he's not going to play until 27. So it is like he's a 27 quarterback, even though he's in the 26 class. So that might make Michigan more attractive to him with Underwood there, especially if he sees success with the offense and success with Underwood.
Yeah, I just hope that Lindsey is creative. I want a little bit of Ben Johnson in my coordinator. I want some of that stuff. I like we look. You have a foundation, and then you have your little tweaks off of your stuff that fools defenses, your formations and shifting, and the stuff we've done. And got to get back to that. I think you're going to see a hell of a lot more quarterback run next year, no matter who's in the game, Denny. Because we're going to have 3 guys, and if Jaden Davis comes along, we're going to have Daniels. We're going to have maybe 4 that they, when you only got one quarterback, you're reluctant to run your damn quarterback. But you watch Notre Dame and Ohio State, or especially Notre Dame's first drive. They ran that kid 9 times in one drive, 9 times, and it's effective. It's a problem to defend. That's why people are doing it, man. You get the extra blocker. So I think we're going to see a hell of a lot more quarterback run from our offense because we have I think they're going to have a confidence in the depth of our quarterback room.
I like how you're talking. Let's see what some of the people have to say. Well, we got a lot still going back to the football. That's what happens. You got to give me a second or two to catch up with what's going on here. Scott asking you, what if Davis Warren wins the job next year? That's the first one that I see, at least talking about Michigan. We were talking some pro football earlier.
You hire a coach and you have faith that he's making the right decisions, Denny. I'm not going to complain about anything. They see him every day. I was that coach that saw my players every day, and the people think they don't know your team like you do. So whatever the hell he puts on the field to start that first game against New Mexico, you gotta believe that our coaches are, that's what they think, the best guy to help us win.
Yeah, I wouldn't completely rule out Davis Warren, but I almost would. I would say that there's like a less than a 1% chance that he would win the job. And most of that has to do with him tearing his knee up on the and the normal rehab for an ACL is 9 months. Well, that puts him right at the opener. And so he can get back and work out a little bit, but he is at fall camp. That's going to make me think that he's going to be not only behind the 8 ball for spring ball and summer conditioning, but fall camp. How much is he going to be able to compete? I would say if you're, I don't know, most people are I think like you, Scar. They just want the best guy. Whoever's out there, they're going to root for.
I'll bet you right now, 4th of July, that kid's sprinting. Danny, the technology now, when I was playing, you had a knee injury, you were done. You were done. It's a totally different deal. He'll be running around 4th of July. I'll know, too. I'll bet you on that. I'll bet you a hamburger on that.
Well, running around.
Sprinting. With agility drills. Sprinting.
Yeah,
he'll be fine.
Scar, that I appreciate what you're saying there with the technology and everything, and you're right. But doing all that with a sleeve is a little bit different than going out there and having guys getting ready to come in and tear your head off when you're, playing quarterback.
That's almost 2 months prior to the first game. So if he's sprinting and doing agility drills 4th of July, he'll be ready to go in 2 months from that point.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, so even now with the technology, it's about 9 months. So I don't see him being able to climb the depth chart coming back from an ACL. Now you want to talk about, 4 or 5 games in, a month in, and him being somebody that could play if, need be, then maybe, but I'll bet against. Nothing against him. Just, that's how I see it. So that I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Well, that'll be something that we can eyeball and we'll look at and see how that plays out. All right. Let's see. Anything else on the quarterbacks?
Danny, how about junior days? That's going on now. Big time junior days. If you want to get back to some of those questions, but a lot of guys are coming up now. It's something a little different that's been maybe a 4 or 5 year deal. Certain this time of year, they bring a bunch of juniors in. I guess they're unofficial visits. They're allowed to feed these kids now. And so that's going on, trying to get these kids on campus, unofficial visits, junior days. Michigan's bringing them in. Hopefully, sounds like, making an impact on some of these kids.
Yeah, it's a new world for Michigan football recruiting. As much as we like following it over the years and we've seen how Michigan has done, now that it is a full go, you mentioned that there's – I said, hey, it's an even playing field, which is great for Michigan, and you mentioned, and correctly so, that, not so with the transfer portal, because still being able to get the transfer credits in that can put them behind the 8 ball in some cases, which you're right. But if we're just talking about recruiting – this is an even playing field out there for Michigan, and they've already done. Whether you want to say really good or pretty good, I would say pretty good. I think they can now do great when it comes to recruiting, and it'll be more fun to follow it now, and I think it'll be easier for this Michigan staff to be able to pull in the players that they have at the top of their board.
Yeah, Denny, I remember my day. I probably went to 10 Michigan basketball games, maybe 5 or 6 as a junior, and then another 4 or 5 when I was a senior, had already committed had already committed, or maybe even prior to that. But yeah, they used to be able to feed you a little bit. I remember. Yeah. Anyway, I used to bring I could bring my buddies with. I brought 3, 4 buddies with me.
Scar, what if I take you back and put you on the spot? What if Michigan was offering you $75,000 in the NIL package, and you went up to East Lansing and they said, we'll give you $750,000?
Yeah, Danny, you're talking night and day, man. No, I would, you're talking night and day. I was close. It was tough. Those decisions are not easy.
I know.
But anyway, no, you're making it, you're making that decision pretty easy. That's a big, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, Danny.
I got you. How about,
Rod Moore? How about Rod Moore? That's great news.
Yeah.
You got a leader. You've got a guy that's proven. You gotta believe again with technology that his knee is healed up real good. Wink was talking big about him. counting on him to be his leader in the secondary. So, man, it's going to be, it's going to be tough to get on the field in that secondary. We've got a lot of good players there. We've recruited and brought in some transfers. So, we've got depth. We're building a roster. So that's great news. He's a leader too.
Yeah, he would have. I don't know if he would have been drafted. Maybe the combine would have been really big for him to see the testing. If he ran really well and had those 3 cones and everything, and his knee checked out, maybe he would be drafted. But I have just kind of a feeling that he would not have been. If you recall, he got hurt, after the season, and then there was, if you use that 8-9 month that I was using for Davis Warren, there was a chance that he could have come back at the earliest for Northwestern. It could have been like if Michigan would have been playing for a championship, it wouldn't have been crazy to think. And I don't know. I didn't talk to Rod Moore. That'd be one of the questions I'll ask him.
Denny, I would agree with Scott. I think Rod Moore had a really, really good year. People were real high on him. I talked to Doug Mallory about him, who's now coaching with with John Harbaugh, and he was big. He was big time high on Rod Moore. So I don't know, but I would agree that he would have probably been drafted. Probably third round.
You're not agreeing with anybody. He was just asking you where.
No, I get it. He says third round. I think he was.
Oh, he did say third round. Okay.
Yeah, I think I know people were high on him. I know Doug Mallory would talk highly about him. So big time.
Yeah. The good news is that that maybe he could have even come back this year, but Michigan was out of it, so of course he didn't. So with some positions, it does take a full other year. We've seen that even with the technology, guys come back and they're just not the same player. You can probably think of a few, even at Michigan, that would come back and they just weren't the same player. And then, after a year removed, they are, even though, they're able to play. I thought there was a lot of that with Corum. And every game, everybody's like, nah, he's not the same guy. Oh, no. And even though he would have some bursts and have some cutting, people are like, no, not the same Corum. But then he started, gaining traction.
It came later. He wasn't the same at first. It came a little later.
Yeah.
Hey, Danny, I got a question for our listeners.
All right.
Who had a better season? Who would you rather have been the year that Oregon had and win a Big Ten championship, put a ring on your finger, or the season that Notre Dame had? I want people to soak that in and think about that. Who had a better year? Oregon, Big Ten champs, unquestioned Big Ten champs, got a big old ring. Notre Dame, play 16 games, got nothing to show for it. I side with Oregon that I would rather be on that football team based on what they accomplished more so than Notre Dame.
Yeah, I would say that this is an easy answer, and it's unquestionably Notre Dame.
Okay. My reasoning is I'd rather have won some type of a championship, 18 teams in that league, come out of that thing undefeated. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. They got no championships to show for it. Anyway, that's my opinion. I think it's a more productive year.
Yeah, my reasoning would be that, Notre Dame doesn't play in a conference, so they can't get the automatic bye. So they had the home playoff game. So Oregon getting the bye is like winning a college football playoff game, which is a big deal, winning a college football playoff game. So, but, if they had just beat Indiana and then lost, who they play next? Georgia. If they'd have lost to Georgia, I would have picked Oregon. But, as they say, hey, they had the championship ring and everything else. Even though Oregon was down 34-0 to Ohio State, got blown off the field, and it was over really quick. In that case, I would say Oregon because they got the hardware. But meanwhile, Notre Dame beat Georgia. They beat Penn State. And they made it all the way to the championship game. So they've got, you say they don't have anything to show for it. They played in the college football championship game, and Oregon embarrassed themselves and, crap their pants on the biggest stage possible in the Rose Bowl against Ohio State. So
okay. I just wanted to throw that out. And speaking of Notre Dame, Danny, I see a lot of Notre Dame two Notre Dame starters, starting center, and a guy who started 23 games, Big Rocco from Clarkston, jumping in the portal. Maybe Notre Dame doesn't want to pay offensive linemen. I don't know what's going on there, but it's interesting in that Notre Dame offensive linemen are in the portal. Michigan is also is in the mix for Rocco. We've seen that. That's something that bothers me, Denny. I'm gonna keep it real here. You know, we talk about this. You know, what's best for players, system, that loyalty, blah 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 blah. You know, and I'm just looking at. You know, we take a guy like Gio El-Hadi now. He's going to be a fifth-year guy. You want to recruit high school kids and be committed to your program and let them go through the process. And now he's a starter. And now, I mean, is he going to have to compete with a guy like Rocco Spindler to keep that position? You know what I mean? It's like people want to talk about, you know, these kids that are leaving for money or this, that, or whatever, but the coaches don't care to make this kid have to, you know, where's the loyalty for a guy you recruited out of high school who started 12, 13 games for you, and now you're going to ask him to compete with Rocco Spindler to be the starting guard? I have a problem with that, but if that's the dog-eat-dog world we're in now for a player, you got to just say, you know, what's the best for me? Is that where we're at all the time? What's the best for me? And where's the loyalty? I just had to throw it out there. I threw a lot at you. It is what it is.
Yeah, I think that if you asked all of the kids, would you rather go back where there wasn't this system and that you can get supplanted by somebody else? They would say, no, we want the money. We know that there'll be things that come along with it. And so I think every single one would say that they would rather have this system than the old one. But, you know, if it wasn't for the dog-eat-dog world, I don't know if Michigan would have won the national championship. Harbaugh went out there and got the kid from Arizona State, got the center from Stanford, bringing in a left tackle, another offensive tackle, when there were plenty of guys that you could say, hey, these guys have been around. They have earned it. Where's the loyalty? But, you know, Michigan won the championship, and but you know what? They needed all those guys. Zach Zinner got hurt. They got in where, they weren't ready to go right from the beginning. And, so they almost needed all Trente Jones. They needed their backups and all of it to win the championship. So no dog-eat-dog world, no national championship for Michigan, just on the loyalty angle.
I get it. I just know we brought in we got it like two offensive line transfers already. You know, that are where are you slotting them in anyway?
Yeah, I don't know if Rocco. I would think that Rocco would want a big payday. You know, he could stay at Notre Dame and compete. He got banged up in the playoff, and then the guy that got in there did pretty good. But he was starting. He was in there for the national championship game. I was watching the game, so maybe he's thinking that. When he went in and talked to him, they're like, yeah, we'll give you 200,000. And his agent's telling him, we can get you $1 million. Well, I don't know. Is he better than all 3 or 4 of the guards that Michigan has out there? And I don't know how much money, they have left. They dedicate, they gave the 2 kids, the one from Cal Poly and the one from Ferris State. They gave him something and they looked at it, and they'll give El-Hadi something. They've got slots and a cap space for all of that. Are they, now that somebody has come free, saying, hey, maybe we should splurge a little bit on the offensive line? I don't know.
I just seeing it and just trying to put myself in that position as a returning starter. When you recruit kids out of high school, you talk about loyalty. It's just something that, is going on, man.
I doubt. Oh, I don't know. I can't say that. I don't know how much you're going to talk about loyalty anymore. I think you're going to talk about competing. You could compete for the job. Yeah. And every year at the end, these guys are free agents. The difference.
Yeah, that's what it is, Denny. You have to accept it that, even though you've, whether you're recruited or not, it doesn't really matter. You got to be one of the best 22, best of 44, whatever. So.
Yeah, and if you don't like your spot, you can, peace out at any point. You can go somewhere else.
That's what it is, man.
You can be just like a coach. They can do the same thing. Oh, yeah, it's different.
Yeah.
from that part. Well, so far, would you rather have had Notre Dame season or Oregon season? It looks like people are agreeing with you, Scar. They're all
That's
like,
not a first.
that's it.
I mean, I'm sure maybe they gave him some type of a ring, but I just thought about this. I'm like, God, Notre Dame. I feel bad for him in a way that you play 16 games and you got really nothing to hang on your finger to say we won something.
Yeah. Well, no, I get that part. I understand. Scar, that Big Ten champ. It's good. It would be tough to really flip you on that decision. The Big Ten championship was everything. You won it. That's like, I don't know. That's your most. You have the Michigan ring, which I know a lot of guys say that's their most valuable piece of jewelry or whatever. But that Big Ten championship ring is right there too. As your most cherished piece of treasure on your hand. So telling you like, hey, Notre Dame, they won a couple college football playoff games in this expanded playoff. You're like, come on. They don't have a Big Ten championship, so I get that. I mean, I'm not over here. I would say Notre Dame because of all the things that I just said. They won 3 freaking playoff games to get to the national championship game. I would take that. Like, I would rather have Michigan. I would want them to win it all, but I'd rather have Michigan go to the championship game next year than win the Big Ten and get down 34-0 in their first game. Every time.
Now, listen, Ohio State. People, I agree with Saban. People want to beat up. You lost to Michigan. You lost. Screw that. Okay, you didn't win a Big Ten championship, but you won a national championship. So I still believe that what Ohio State accomplished is something to be real proud of. And obviously, you don't want to lose to your rival, and you want to win the big. You'd like to do it the way Michigan did it last year. That's the best. But what Ohio State accomplished is something I think they should be proud of. I know a lot of our listeners might not like that, but
no. Well, a lot of our listeners stay online every day, and they've got a bunch of Michigan State and Ohio State fans, and part of, and this is not really you, and it's actually not really me, but there's a lot of people that live their Michigan fandom online every day, and so you have to come equipped with, hey, you lost to Michigan, you didn't win the Big Ten, you didn't get to the Big Ten championship game. And, so who cares? You got people quoting Woody from the 60s saying you didn't win anything, if you didn't beat Michigan. So, those all here's the clock. You haven't beaten us in 5
Danny, if I was coaching at Michigan, and this is pretty much we would talk about it as a team. Bo used to have us put our goals up there. If I was the head coach of Michigan, this would be my goals, and they would probably be in this order. Number 1, win the Big Ten championship. Number 2, beat Ohio State. Number 3, beat Michigan State. And number 4, win the national championship. Those would be the goals, I think, if I was the head coach, or if I was a senior and the coach asked me, to list my goals, that's what I would put. It would be Big Ten number 1, beat Ohio State, beat Michigan State, win the national championship. 4 goals. That would be it.
Yeah, I like all those goals, but if you said which one is the most valuable, I would say winning the national championship. So, and you could technically lose to Michigan State, Ohio State, not playing the Big Ten championship, and win the national championship.
I get it.
And that would be the it wouldn't. I don't know. Is it the ultimate year? It would be a great year. You won a championship, the national championship. National championship is better than the Big Ten championship. I know how this feeling was back in 2021 when Michigan lost to Michigan State. Had all the state fans, boo-hoo, and everything else. Michigan made the college football playoff. They won the Big Ten, and they beat Ohio State. And the loss to Michigan State was like, yeah, of course you want to beat them, but you want to win the Big Ten. And you want to win the national championship. Out there.
I did the same thing when I was coaching. I had my players. We went over our goals. We put them up there. The players always knew that to win the league championship was number 1. Hang out with the co-heads. That I tell you what, it's a lot easier when you win, Scott. Hanging out with the pretty co-heads.
I'm going to tell you this, Scott. From what I hear about Scar, he always did pretty well with that 5th goal. It sounded like that 5th goal was
Man,
always
you got to have game on and off the field, baby. Game on and off the field. How about this? What do you got? Aaron's got this. This is the problem with the playoff. Regular season is meaningless now. Well, again, you want regular season. You want to win that. You want to win your league championship.
Yeah,
I still think that's important to win a Big Ten championship. I wouldn't call it meaningless. Those games are still important. We still want to beat your rival. I don't give a damn even though Ohio State won a national championship, those players, until they go to the grave, will always, when they get their reunions and they do their things and whatever they do, they will always sit around and bitch about the fact that they didn't beat Michigan. Trust me, even though they got a national championship on their finger, it'll always be a factor. So it's not meaningless. It's, it does matter. So
yeah, you were always going to have to trade something if you were going to have a bigger playoff, and it was going to dilute the regular season, and it was going to diminish the Michigan-Ohio State game. That was always going to be the case. Now you have to just ask yourself, when you wake up on that Saturday and Michigan's playing Ohio State, did it diminish it in 22 when Michigan beat them at Columbus and Ohio State still made the playoff? And, they could have easily won the national championship if they would have made that kick against Georgia. They would have probably pounded TCU and they would have had that. So it's, even with just the 4 teams, that was still a possibility for just a couple years ago. So you have to recalibrate it. You have to ask yourself, do I really wish it would go back to where there was not even a 4-team playoff, where it was just a 2-team playoff? And then, boy, that would make, and then you wouldn't have the Pac-10 teams in here. It would be like the old days. I would rather have this system, but depending on how old you are, there's a lot of people, you get to a certain age, you're like, I like things the way they were when I was 12 years old, because that's when you were the biggest fan. So I understand that. I got to hear my mom, who's 82 years old, tell me how much she likes, these singers from and I'm like, I know, Mom, I know you don't like any of the music, but the kids that are, teenagers now, when they're 80, they're going to say the same thing. So that's what, and she always says, yeah, I know, but there's nothing like it. I'm like, okay.
How about $4.5 million for Jeremiah over there in Columbus, number 4, the freak?
Yeah, well, so that's 4.5 for 2 years, right? So is that
what that is? Antoine's talking about it. They're offering Jeremiah the bag, baby. $4.5 million. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, well, he's got 2 years left. So yeah, that's Bryce Underwood money.
Well, it's he's been productive. He helped them win a national championship. He's the most dominant receiver on the field and most dominant receiver in the country. And do they win that game without him? And it's real, and they got to fight people off for him. Other people are offering it. But here's the thing, Danny, that why I think that kid, the difference between a receiver, you pay a bunch of money to a receiver as a freshman, compared to paying a quarterback a bunch of money like we're paying our guy.
Yeah.
A quarterback needs time to develop. He's not going to come in there and win you a national championship year 1. I'm just keeping it real with you. This kid, a freak receiver, he's a factor. The second he walked on that field, his first game at Ohio State, he's in the scouting report. Okay? But I guarantee you, when we go to Oklahoma's not going to fear if Bryce Underwood's our starting quarterback. He's not. He might be something to be feared, game 12. But, it's a different story then. But anyway, it's a ton of money. The Buckeyes are, they got to pay him. And the kid is produced, man. Just, you've heard me say it many times about Dante Moore going to UCLA. They got absolutely nothing for their money. He wasn't, really a factor as a freshman. Now he's at UCLA or at Oregon as the backup, but he'll finally be productive in year 3 is when Dante Moore will be a productive player. He will be too. He'll be a special player, but it's be going into his 3rd year.
Yeah. The crazy thing about Jeremiah Smith is he's kind of like that player that we all talk about that follow recruiting he's almost like the great whale that you're always chasing, that you always hear about and everybody would want. And that, there's no way that he could live up to the hype and all this. It reminds me a little bit of LeBron James. In fact, you had what's the former Notre Dame quarterback, Brady?
Brady Quinn.
Brady Quinn was saying, I've never seen a prospect like this. This guy's like Michael Jordan and LeBron James combined. Even Urban Meyer was saying the same things, like, oh, we've never seen a guy like this. And then, he pretty much backed that up. Now, it was great. Just like Michigan beating Ohio State, and they still won the national championship. Michigan held Jeremiah Smith to 35 yards. And the one touchdown he made easily could have been called offensive pass interference. I mean, he was riding his guy. I mean, it wasn't called, but it could have been easily called on him. And, Michigan pretty much shut him down. And so that was good. But, if Jeremiah Smith was eligible for the draft, he'd be the number one pick.
Well, that's one of the things I was going to say. It's like this is a kid that's a perfect example of why the hell is the system keeping him back. He needs to go go make that big money. He's Calvin Johnson, man. That's what he is. He's maybe an inch shorter than Calvin Johnson. I mean, that's what he is. Maybe even a little more athletic. But yeah, you're right. Why the hell does he have to play 2 more years of college football?
Yeah, and Calvin Johnson wasn't drafted number 1 overall. There's only been 2.
Yeah, this kid is a Scouting Report nightmare. Wink put on that film, and he's like, okay, I got to stop their run game, and I got to find a way to give wherever the hell this kid is on the field, number 4, wherever the hell he is, I got to have a plan. Okay, I've defended teams that have that one freak receiver, and everything is focused around that kid. And Wink earned his $2.5 million, man.
Yeah, only Keyshawn and Nebraska wideout Irving Fryer were taken number 1 overall, and Smith would be the number 1 pick. So that is different. That gets you to Wink. Wink.
Anyway, Danny, the good thing about this, I'm going to close on this.
Okay.
The good thing about him taking $4.5 million, it's money that can't go to other guys for the Buckeyes. So hopefully they run out of money.
Well. Yeah, that's right. Maybe they'll run out of money. There's the part to it. Well, Wink made himself. That's where whatever you thought about Wink at the beginning of the season and the second half of the season, people really started warming up to him after the Ohio State game. And then he backed it up with the way Michigan came out against Alabama and how they did against Milroe. I know the rain was there, but what was their wide receiver? Ryan Williams? That guy, he didn't even have 10 yards.
Yeah.
Now, Michigan snuffed him out. They shut down Jalen Milroe. They forced a bunch of turnovers. Everybody's like, man, let's get this Wink Martindale. So hopefully Michigan is still able to keep Wink. There's still musical chairs going on and everything in the pro game. You got to keep an eye on that Saints. Got to keep an eye on that Saints job. One of those guys.
The Saints guy who's up, one of the key guys has a relationship with Wink. So we gotta survive a few more NFL coaches being hired. And but yeah, I listen. I was calling for this though. I'm going to Wink and Knowles together here. I was calling that I want Ryan Day back, but I want Knowles gone. So I was hoping he'd leave the Big Ten, but we don't play Penn State next year. He's going to Penn State. That's a good situation for us. I'd rather see what the hell he replaces him with. Jim Knowles is a brilliant coach. He's a smart coach. He actually got better defending us through the time he was there. We only scored 13 this past year, but he's a damn good coach. And I'm glad he's gone. So I'm glad. I'm believe it or not, I'm still glad Ryan Day is there. And
so
Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly is up for. I'm hearing his name up for NFL jobs now as a coordinator. So that can only be good, Denny, for him to lose both of his coordinators. Anything that hurts Ohio State with transition, turnover, because you never know. He might get one of those coaches wrong. If Ryan Day gets one of those coaches that he has to replace, he slips up on it, that could be huge. And that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, when I saw that Knowles was gone, I thought that was good news. But you go to Penn State, it's kind of like, all right, but Penn State's not on the schedule unless they play. They're not on the schedule, but they could meet him in the in the playoffs or the Big Ten title game. That makes Penn State stronger. With and that was pretty boss move there by Penn State going out and stealing.
You got to wonder, Danny.
Coordinator.
You got to wonder. I just wonder about some of these guys. It's like, okay, Knowles. I know that you always want to challenge as a coach. Okay, so Knowles has been with Ohio State for a couple of years. Didn't win a Big Ten championship, but okay, so he's going to go to. Is it for the money? Why do you go to Penn State? And then here's a question I have for Penn State. He's gone through more damn defensive coordinators in the last 10 years. James Franklin. I got to wonder what's going on over there. Do guys not like working for him? Because he's gone through a lot. He had Manny Diaz. He had Tom Allen for 1 year. These guys are leaving. What's going on with James Franklin? So anyway, that's that. Antoine's got a question. Scar is going to make Ohio State job even tougher, being that they get to replace their entire defense. Well, that's the key question, Antoine, that Ryan Day is going to have to answer, because Jim Knowles runs some unique stuff. He ain't like Michigan's defense. He don't run our stuff. He runs a unique philosophy, okay? So Ryan Day is going to have to make the decision. If he goes from within, then he keeps the system, and you have a different guy pulling the trigger, but the system will be the same. Okay, so that's why that's good. That's why I wanted him gone, man. I wanted him gone, that hopefully one of his assistants is not as smart as him, or Ryan Day chooses to blow up the system and bring another guy in. But it's all good news for Michigan that Jim Knowles is gone, in my opinion. Because I was calling for that a month ago, right, Denny?
Oh, yeah. You've been mentioning it. And in fact, I thought, wow, I thought maybe a month ago it happened, because you were talking about it, and it just recently happened with Knowles. Yeah, if you have any questions, you got any points about Michigan football that you want to hear handled, you want Scar to answer them, go ahead and use the feedback. I'm going to take you to the pros. Scar, you're good at being able to just go and then go right back on topic. But, the Lions lost their defensive coordinator. The Lions lost their offensive coordinator. Do you think it's easier at the pro level to replace those guys, or is that going to be, how big of a hit is that going to be?
Yeah, there's certain jobs that are like, everybody wants certain jobs. Michigan's one of the top 10 jobs in the country. You got money, you're going to be able to get top people for positions to coach at Michigan. So, but that's one of the talents, Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, all the coaches that they lost, Belichick over 20 years, all the coaches that he lost, he's able to plug in another guy and still win. Nick Saban, all them guys he lost that are Lane Kiffin, Sark, all them guys, Kirby Smart, he plugs in another guy. I mean, I experienced it at a small level as a high school coach. I always had a plan for when this guy leaves. I always had another boom. I'm bringing this freshman up. I'm bringing this JV coach up. I'm always thinking. You always got to think. You're in case something happens. That's Schembechler 101, man. But that's the sign of a great leader. Dan Campbell went within to hire his defensive coordinator. So it was the linebacker coach. It looks like he might be going outside for an offensive coordinator. So Sharon Moore, hopefully he doesn't have to make that. But that's just a sign. That is a huge sign of a great leader and of the right football coach, man. You gotta handle turnover with players, coaches. You gotta have wear that hat and be talented wearing that hat in many different ways.
All right, here's some questions for you, Scar, from West Quad. Do you think Chip Lindsey goes with Keene, or do we let Bryce cook?
If I had to bet, game one, we are going to see Keene start the football game, and we are going to see a heavy Bryce Underwood package. He will be worked along and developed the way we did JJ. You will see a lot of run when he's in the game, but there's going to come a point where they're not going to be afraid to let it rip like JJ did. So I think they're going to slowly wean him in, slowly get him comfortable. But the kid could start against Ohio State by game 12 if he's that good. He could. If he goes in there and just does some freak stuff, running around, throwing it with accuracy and confidence, But I think early in the year you're going to see Keene with a Bryce Underwood package. That would be my guess.
I like that guess. I predict that Bryce Underwood will start by the Wisconsin game. And I believe what Scar's saying, that we'll see him against New Mexico, maybe against Oklahoma, probably against CMU. The first Big Ten game is at home against Nebraska. That's 4 games. Then Michigan has a bye week, and then they're at home against Wisconsin. That just seems like the perfect spot to put Bryce Underwood in. That's if I was looking for the perfecta on that, exactly when he would play, that's when I would put him in there. Now, I go back to JJ, and I had predicted him to get in there for the Iowa game, and he took over by, game 3, so it was a little bit earlier, so I was off on that one. We've got more.
Yeah, but Danny, this is a different deal. You're comparing a kid who was there for a year to a true freshman.
You're right.
But you know, he is going through. He is on campus now. He's going to go through spring football. They're throwing all the time down there now, so it'll be thoughts on O-line having 7 or 8 potential starters. Or do you think we're close to their 4 top O-line starters? I think we're going to have a lot of freaking competition there, Jeff. I highly doubt that we have the same starters all year, even if they are all healthy. I think they brought in good players. I mean, the way we finished that Alabama game, 4 of those guys are back. You know, good luck beating out Link or Sprague at tackle. All right, Denny?
Yeah.
And good luck beating out Crippen, who started about 9 games. And good luck beating out Al Hadi. So you know, if you're coming in there, you're gonna have to beat out. There's one job open, that left guard, and then. But I do think we brought in some damn good players that ain't nobody going to be allowed to have a crummy practice or a crummy week or a crummy game. You know.
More questions for Scar. Scar, is college football just like the Olympics now? You don't see world records in qualifying, just make it to the Olympics, and then it's just a 3-week sport.
Well, you know, hey, first, I think it depends on how you look at it. I just from a former player standpoint, I want to win the Big Ten championship. So every game during the season matters in terms of what I got to do that. I want to beat Ohio State and I want to beat Michigan State. Those are things that I'm going to live with the rest of my life, you know? So I don't know if that answers your question. I just think that every game matters, and you know, those things matter.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I'm not taking it. So I think that's taking it too far. Like, oh, the regular season is meaningless. The Ohio State game is completely watered down and doesn't mean anything. Yes, it does. I mean, even it is more like the pros. There's no doubt about that. Where you don't have to have the undefeated season. We just look at what Ohio State did. You can drop 1, you can drop 2 games, and you can still win the national championship. So no, it's not like it used to be. But I think it's better. You know, there were more games, and I liked it. How about M Go Blue 1234 Scar is asking, who do you want to start at quarterback? He says Underwood 100%. Too elite of a talent, generational, not to be starting. So who do you want?
I'm not the guy making that decision. I want Sharon. We have to have faith that Sharon Moore and Lindsey are going to make the right decision. We want the kid developed properly. We want our football team to win. We want to get our team ready to win game 1. And who's that guy? Those guys are going to make that decision based on everything they see that kid every day go blue at practice. Okay, they're throwing now. They're lifting, they're running. They're going to see him 15 practices in the spring. We ain't going to see none of it. We don't know what the hell any of these guys are doing. We don't know how accurate they are. We don't know how many mental mistakes they make. We don't know none of that. We'll watch the spring game, and then we'll talk about it. And then they'll go through camp. And I want us to win, man. I want to win a Big Ten championship. I want a plan to, if he's not the guy, to develop him. But I don't know what the hell could happen. I really don't know. I don't have I want I don't have a preference of who the hell I want to win the job. I want the guy that's going to help us win, and I have faith in Sharon Moore. That's all I'm looking at as a Michigan guy.
That's
Then he puts the right guy in there at the right time. When Underwood's ready, he puts him in.
Yes, that's in a very experienced and thought out answer, Scar. I think you're right about that. For me, because you're saying, who do I want? I would want Underwood. I would want him to be just this prodigy who, is 17 in August, turns 18, and he is there for game one, and he's great. And he's out there, and you're like, oh my gosh, this guy is the greatest thing ever. So yes, that's what I want. And there's a chance. I don't like listening to Scar. You understand that, it's a process, and that doesn't mean he's not going to be great if he doesn't start for game one or even game five. But, you like a part of football is being excited about the upcoming season and the possibilities. And when you got a guy like Underwood, there's those thoughts too. You know what I remember? It reminds me a little bit. I just thought of this, is that when the Lions went 0-16, they had the number one pick and they selected Matt Stafford. And I can remember what I was saying on the air. I said, I don't want Stafford with the weight of the entire 0-16 world to be on his shoulders, to have to go out there and everybody will turn on him. Get Dante Culpepper out there for a couple games. And if Stafford's ready, well, then you could put him in. Look at Patrick Mahomes. I don't know. That was afterwards, but Mahomes didn't play for his rookie season. Along the way, before they even got to the preseason, somebody from the Lions told me Stafford's the real deal. I said, well, how much does he know about the playbook? He said he can chapter and verse that playbook. He's tough. He can make every throw. He's a Hall of Famer. He's going to be great here. He's going to be great right away. That's what he told me. And so Stafford was that. And there were some ups and downs through those years, and some of it was his fault. He had a learning curve, and he wasn't a Hall of Fame. He was, pretty good, but that's kind of the same thing. It's sometimes they hit early, but that's different than, that's an older guy, even though he left after 3 years. We're talking about somebody who's 17 right now and won't turn 18 until mid-August.
Hey, one more thought about Underwood. The thing about Underwood, Danny, where you say, who do I want? Underwood starting 11 games, going into Columbus, or having the Buckeyes come to Ann Arbor this year, that would be a great thing, because he's a different talent than little Kenny. What's his name? Mikey Keene. He's a different talent. Can we get him? But Sharon Moore is going to want to listen. We can beat New Mexico with any of our quarterbacks, okay? But the question is, Sharon Moore is going to want to go to Oklahoma and win that football game. So he doesn't give a damn about anything other than who's the guy that's going to help us win. So
Scar, before you answer this next question, I want to encourage everyone who has not joined up with the Maize and Blue Review to do so today by going to michigan.rivals.com. You want to know about that quarterback who Lindsey, or two quarterbacks that Chip Lindsey's in on, and what they bring to the table. That's kind of scratching the surface of the information that you will get. Go to michigan.rivals.com. Now, Scar, I did a show on Wednesday talking about 3 position groups that I was most unsure about. Which position group are you most unsure about?
Okay, I have confidence in our quarterback room. After what we saw from Marshall and Ben Hall and the kid from Alabama, I got confidence in our running back room. I like our tight ends. I think we've got a couple guys that have shown up there. I like our offensive line. The receiver, who do we have that is going to give people problems offensively? So receiver would be the one group on offense. I want to see something there that is a problem for people. And then defensively, I got great faith in the edge position. I have great faith in the secondary. The linebacker position, we know we have 2 that, we got Hausman back. D-line, Denny, inside D-line. I mean, I want to see about this kid coming from Alabama. I want to see, some of these guys we brought, these young guys, who's going to make the step. We got spoiled, man. We've had Mozzie, we've had Hinton, we've had and then Mason Graham and Big Kenny. are we gonna maintain that level of inside D line play? So my three groups that I am not completely sold on are receiver, D line, and then depth at linebacker. Those would be how I would look at it.
Great job. I would add Chris Jenkins as being spoiled in there as well. He wasn't bad. I went with corner specifically in that list, and then I, like you, had wide receivers, but I have quarterback as the position I'm most unsure about. Yeah, Underwood could be great. I don't know. The rest of these guys, Warren got hurt. We just talked about him. Jaden Davis, question marks. I don't know.
Keene started 24 football games. He's a player, Denny. He's a player.
Well, he might
don't look at what he did against Michigan. That's Michigan's defense. Look at what he did in them other 24 games. He's a player. They brought a good player in there. He's accurate, tough, athletic kid. They'll run him. We're going to be fine at that position.
I've seen plenty of up transfers, and that's what Keene is, coming from Fresno State, kind of a mid-major going up to major. And then at the quarterback position, it can be a little bit of hit and miss when it comes to that. Even if he's played well, even if they've scouted well, it happens, when it comes down to that. Oh, let
me, Denny. I want to just, I don't know where you're at on your what else you have, but I want to say one last thing about Ohio State. Why they won a national championship? Okay, right. They did and I give Ryan Day a ton of credit here. He went out and got the right quarterback. He got rid of. I don't know if they wouldn't have did this with Kyle McCord, but that kid's ability to run was, and he had a great championship game. So he brought in the right quarterback. He brought in the running back. He had the kid. He got him come. He had the other guy. He got him to come back for another year, and then he went out and got the kid from Ole Miss. So he had really good running backs, better than us at those two positions. He went out and got the best receiver in the country, and he had a transfer or two in there too. So he had, in my opinion, they recruited great players for the last 3-4 years that were on the roster, but he got the right quarterback, the right running backs, and the right receivers. And I give the guy credit, Denny. Chip Kelly as an offensive coordinator was the right move for Ryan Day, and Jim Knowles has always been tough. So I give Ryan Day a lot of credit for bringing in and building a good roster, and then letting those guys coach. And that's what that's what we're competing against, man. You want to beat this guy, you got to out identify talent and out recruit him and out NIL him and get him in here and then out coach him. That's what that's what I saw why Ohio State, in my opinion, won the national championship.
I like the point. I like your enthusiasm. Jeff, I think Scar went through all the position groups, so he answered that. So we're left with the final question for Scar. And if you want to take a couple minutes, because this is one think about. Scar, when you were back at Michigan on campus, was there more talent in the South or West Quad?
Yeah, there were pretty girls in both of those. My buddies, the hockey players, the baseball guys, they were over at West Quad. Football guys, we were over at South Quad. So I guess I might have wandered over to both once or twice. But yeah, there was talent everywhere. Again, it's just, Denny, you got to have game, man, on the field and off the field.
Scar, I don't know. I hear you about game, but there's a couple things that go on. I've known football players. Some of them just have to walk in and they might have their Big Ten championship ring on and they just go like this and put it up and just show the girls in the club. And then he doesn't have to do anything. They just all run up to him. It's a little bit like that with being in a fraternity. I had a lot of friends that were in fraternities, and some of these guys, I saw their girlfriends and I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Well, you go hang around with them. And you go and they don't have to have any game. They just walk in.
You still got to have some game, man. It takes more.
Like, boom, boom.
It takes more than the letter jacket. Let me end on this.
It takes more than a letter jacket.
Hey, Denny, let me tell you, this is a true story.
All right.
A guy told me this. Lester Hayes. You remember Lester Hayes?
Yeah, he's my favorite cornerback of all time.
Lester Hayes he's been asked to speak at a 7th grade little league football banquet, Okay, visualize about 50 little 13-year-olds and their parents. So Lester Hayes get up to, he don't talk real good. You remember how he talked?
Yeah, not great.
So this is what Lester Hayes said. This is all he said. He had a Super Bowl ring. He goes up there and says to him, I'm going to tell you something, guys. You get one of these, and he shows the kids the ring. You get one of these, and you get all the P. I'm just going to say the P word.
He said that.
You want, okay? That's a true story. You get all the P you want. He showed him the Super Bowl ring, and he walked down and sat down. That's a true story.
That's a great story. I don't even have anything left. I'm just going to say thanks to everybody for watching and listening. And remember, Scar's quote of the day, quote, "It takes more than a letter jacket." There you go. Scar, great job. Look forward to talking with you.
All right, brother. Go Blue. A big game tonight. Penn staying at home. We got to start playing physical, man. The basketball team, I think Dusty might be running them a little bit. They look tired against Purdue. You got to give them
all week off.
You got to rest their legs. You can't beat them up. You can't run the hell out of them. They look tired. Give them a day off before the game, and let's start freaking elbowing some dudes, man. We got to play physical.
Okay. There it is, Jim Scarcelli. Thanks for watching.
All right.
There he is.